So my name is Alex O'Keefe. I am the 2018-19 Crest Fellow in Art Librarianship. So I work in the Haas Arts Library, and I've been working on Ensemble at Yale for my project as the Crest Fellow. So the project I'm presenting today is Ensemble at Yale, which is a long-standing project before I got here, a collaboration between the DH Lab and then the Haas Arts Library Representative Lindsay King in order to preserve Yale drama history. What we're doing is we have digitized programs from the 1920s through about 2016 that we are asking people to transcribe. So it's a crowdsourced transcription project, which is really exciting because it means we get to work with people a lot. And so we basically have the actors and their roles, and we're trying to get people to transcribe the names so that we have a data set that we can later use to maximize asking questions about the Yale rep that we don't know right now. I think the most exciting part of this project has been working to invigorate a volunteer base. So when I first came on, the project was all set up and ready to go thanks to the DH Lab and all of the efforts that came before me. But my big initiative has been bringing in the people and getting them excited about our project. Since crowdsourcing requires the people, a crowd as we say, the crowd in crowdsourcing, we have been trying really hard to create programming and create opportunities for people to come together over these exciting materials and learn more about the history with us as we also produce the product of data set for later use. And so once we have all of the crowdsourced data together, we're working now on what we want that to look like for the population to access it essentially. So we would definitely are working on ingesting it into Find It at Yale, which is the Yale side of things, but we also are hoping to do some more data visualization options like using Gephi and social networking mapping in order to show more of the relationships between these people and their lives, again, from the 20s through about 2016. So the conversations we're having today have been really exciting to be a part of, especially listening to all of the speakers before coming to the poster session. I'm hoping that I'll trade off with my colleagues soon to walk around and talk to more people, but it's just the energy in the room as well as the diversity of digital humanities projects is just so exciting to see, and to see how everyone is maximizing their different areas to create these really interesting projects. Collaborating with the DH Lab has been excellent. Everyone has been really helpful. We have lots of times we have to troubleshoot together, and everyone's very open and helpful in every angle that we've had and intercross with. So we've been very excited to represent at Beyond Boundaries today.
My name is Levin. I'm a junior. I'm studying the history of science and medicine and ecology and evolutionary biology, but I'm here in my capacity as a history of science and medicine major, and I'm a third-year undergraduate. So I'm working with Dr. Carolyn Roberts in the History of Science and Medicine department to look at manifests from slave trade ships across during the transatlantic slave trade, looking at the Latin pharmaceutical abbreviations of medication names, expanding them into usable Latin terms, and then finding an English vernacular name for those medications, and eventually turning them into a database that people can use to answer historical questions across time about medications, both explicitly in the slave trade and more broadly. Also hoping to sort of trace those medications back to diseases that people were expecting to encounter during the slave trade, as we can look at sort of likelihood, cost, and amount of medications that people were bringing onto slave trade ships. So lessons learned, I think that transcription is something that is really an important skill and that we shouldn't lose it as digitization becomes something really important. Because though it may seem that this is sort of legible and doable handwriting, I'm not sure how much the camera can pick it up, it's actually not able to be read by a digital tool at this point. So it still needs to be done by a human. And I think that's a skill that is really important to keep up as we think about the way that digitization and humanities will stay united. And then another lesson learned really is that looking at historical medication, it's important to sort of take a lens of judgment away. I think it's very easy to look at these medications and think, obviously they shouldn't be giving anyone mercury, I don't know what you were doing, but actually looking at the ways that people were developing medication over time and thinking critically about that, but also giving them a little bit of benefit, I think can give you insight into people in this time period and the way that they were thinking about medicine that's much more valuable. So next step is really expansion of the data set. For now, we have about 75 entries in this format, but we've only worked with 2 entries from actual manifests. So expanding those, hoping to find more manifests in the future, and then hoping to find other students that can help expand this data set so that it can be turned into an interactive database that people can really use.
So one thing I think that appears clearly in the Beyond Boundaries today is that the field is, in general, of digital humanities is evolving. We are not presenting project only. We are discussing together about what makes digital humanities meaningful. And that comes to a good time because I think the debates needs to be reshaped and modified because a lot of things were kind of endless and cycling questions that are now maybe a bit behind us, considering how inspiring and how interesting the question and the things that were discussed today were. So that's a great, I think there are great hopes for this field.
So the project was part of a graduate seminar focused on 17th century French literature and print culture. And the project was kind of a 3-week period within that course in which we took basically a manuscript of a 17th century comedy and learned to text encode it using XML and TEI standards, and then realized it through a number of different interfaces. So each group decided to envision the scene that they were responsible for in a specific way. And we were also working with a team at University in Seattle. So we were Skyping with them throughout and collaborating with them on the project.
Yeah, translating a book from the object books to a digital version, it's also a way to reread the work, the literary work, in a new way. It's not just putting the text online, it's rethinking about our relationship to a book, our relationship to literary works, and it's a lot of new questions and new topics for us as researchers.
So we were able to communicate directly with our partners in Washington via Skype, and so we met in the Beinecke Library and went back and forth about the work we did over email. So that kind of kept the workflow pretty simple and functional.
Would one of you like to walk us through the project?
I can do it. Okay, so as Doyle said, we all designed 5 different interfaces, and as you can see, they all look pretty different. And I think that kind of one thing that we learned is that your interface really changes as a function of what you want to portray in the text, what's the most important. So for example, these top 2, this one is done by myself and then Madison completed this one. And these ones are, I would say, much more about the performativity of the text, much less about maybe the text itself, whereas this one, which is Doyle's, showcases variations across different editions of the text. So it's a much more academic, we could say, edition. Yeah, and so we all chose different scenes, and as Walid said, we kind of had to read our scenes to see what was the most important thing content-wise or more structurally to share about the work.
And you had to debate with your partners at the University of Washington and Seattle to elaborate those interfaces.
So this one is animated. It's designed to function like a WhatsApp message. So we made the choice to not modernize the text at all, but rather just to kind of show how this kind of conversation is still relevant today. This specific text is, or this scene is kind of about gender roles in the 17th century as they were conveyed in this play. So we've color coded the text to show, or the text messages to show the different genders. And so we kind of envisioned this more as like an animated interface that could be used as a pedagogical tool to show how one can read kind of at any level of French or of expertise of the 17th century, how one could read this text today.
So my scene deals with a bourgeois woman who was she's pretending to be from a higher class than she actually is. And she says all sorts of lies about the way that she has a carriage. And as the scene progresses, however, the other characters see through her lies and her the image that she's trying to project. And I was reading a lot about selfies and sort of social appearances on social media and thinking through these questions that were very present in this scene. We think of them as contemporary. So I wanted to show that. It's sort of one of the subtexts of the scene, and I wanted to make that apparent with a visual. So I chose the mirror, what would be like an iPhone today, and showed her self-image cracking as all of her lies are revealed to be lies. And was really thinking about how to make the subject matter more relatable to a contemporary reader.
Yes, my name is Azza Siddique, and I am a second-year MFA graduate in the sculpture department. The project title is named Tirhaga, and it is using neural style transfer to generate images in the likeness of an artist that recently passed away. I've learned a lot. I personally don't have a background in coding or programming, and so I've taken online code academy classes, but the DH Lab has helped me so much in order to set up the system and teach me how to use it, and being able to use it, and just constantly learning while working with the programs. It's constantly new for me. Yeah. So with the neural style transfer, there's multiple ways that you can use it. You can use color scale in order to shift colors around, as well as content and style weights. So I found that to be really generative in the ways that taking certain content images and applying the style and to play around with that to kind of start to understand the program a bit more and to understand what it's doing. So that was ways that learning through the programs. So this is a image of the artist's painting. So this is one of the paintings, and this is another painting. So what I had done is use these two paintings as the style weights, and from there I had taken images from his iPhone that are used as inspirational references and Photoshop them together in order to generate a new image that would be in the likeness of a potential painting he could have created. So this is a painting of his, but also combining multiple paintings to kind of create different colorways as well. Just having access to the technology and also its ability to process the information a lot quicker. So being able to have the images available in a shorter time. And just having the support as well. To learn the program, and it's been a really great experience.
My name is Adam Erickson. I'm an undergraduate student, senior. I'm majoring in applied mathematics and physics. I'm working with a professor at the School of Management, and we are working on building an interface to view time series data. And this time series happens to be topic modeling on the Wall Street Journal. So it's a corpus of natural language, and it doesn't fit really well as a visualization on paper. So to really explore all the features, we thought it'd be good to build a web interface. So we used React.js, which is a JavaScript library. It's a Facebook open source project for building user interfaces. We also used another open source library from the Department of Energy for viewing time series data, which wraps React around D3. Basically because both React and D3 want to make updates to the DOM, document object model of HTML, and this package helps them play nicely with each other. We do this so that then we can load in the CSV files. These files are the time series data, so value at certain points in time, such that we could someday feed in new data and we wouldn't have to update any of the code. So we have a menu here where you can choose which time series you want to appear on the plot, and this we hope could be of arbitrary length sometime in the future. And you see here, I'll unclick them, some of them, but you see it starts with a totally blank canvas, which we'll get to in a second here. And then as you start to select them, it begins to draw the plots. And as you mouse over, it tells you the value of the time series at certain points in time. So because these are newspaper articles, each topic is a topic that might appear in the newspaper, and then the value for a certain month is the article which most represents that topic during that month. It's like the top headline, more or less. And you can add a bunch and overlay them. For example, here we have the topic of police crime, mobile devices, and internet, and you can mouse over them and see how they change throughout time and compare them. And then if you select them all on one axis, you can get some more absolute comparisons of their relative proportions. So you might see a spike right here in internet, and then think oh, what kind of was happening around that time? And because all the proportions over all the topics sum to 1, you might see oh, when this one went up, interest in the other one went down. Things like that. Yeah. I'll say, yeah, so this is still a prototype, but one quick thing you can do to check out an example might be, okay, I'll choose a topic of the internet. So then you can see the time series and see oh, in 1985, there was a lot less discussion of the internet in the newspaper than there was right here around 2000, the dot-com bubble. You can see there's some articles about DoubleClick. I was alive at that time, but not super conscious, so I don't remember this, but I know around 2000s a lot was happening with the internet. The one which really has a huge spike is if you choose natural disasters, which you can see even dwarfs the spike in the internet, and this is right after Hurricane Katrina is when the topic proportion really spikes in the newspaper. So yeah, those are the sorts of things, trends you might like to look for and use this interface for. And really what's nice is you could choose an arbitrary number of topics and not have to worry about how it updates the screen. Definitely I learned a lot about front-end development using JavaScript and React and things like that. Asynchronous programming especially is difficult. So if you're writing something more low level or back-end or a project you might do in one of the CS classes here, you can kind of anticipate how it's going to be used. But when you make a user interface, you don't know in what order the user might do things. So you have to build it such that clicks, drags, scrolls, whatever could happen in any order. So you're prepared for anything the user might do to use it well, or even if they were trying to break it in testing or something. So that was really difficult, and that is what React helps do for building user interfaces. Really makes it a lot easier to handle state and to write the program, the interface such that oh, it doesn't matter what order the user does things in because it's declarative, so I want to declare how the front end will be used. So yeah, a lot about that, and that was really interesting.